Chapter 39, Ways of Meeting Krishna. The text is available for free download from the website krishnapath.org. And we're reading from the first edition, copyright 1970, unedited, Nectar of Devotion, ISKCON Press. This is Chapter 39, Ways of Meeting Krishna. When Krishna and his devotees meet, it is technically called yoga, or linking up with the Lord. Such meetings between Krishna and his devotees can be divided into three classes, namely, perfection, satisfaction, and steadiness. When the devotee meets with Krishna in great eagerness, that state of meeting is called perfection. In the Krishna Karanamrita, Bilva Mangal Thakur describes how Krishna meets his devotee. With peacock feather on his head, with Marakata jewels on his chest, with his ever-enchanting smile, his restless eyes, and his very delicate body. In the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 38th chapter, 31st verse, Sukadeva Goswami tells King Parikshit, quote, "My dear king, as soon as Akrura, the chariot driver, saw Lord Krishna and his elder brother Balaram in Vrindavan, he immediately got down from the chariot and, being greatly afflicted by affection for the transcendental Lord, fell down upon his lotus feet to offer respectful obeisances." End quote. These are some of the instances of perfectional meetings with Krishna. When a devotee meets Krishna after long separation, it's called satisfaction. In the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th chapter, 9th verse, it's stated that when Lord Krishna returned to his capital, Dwarka, the inhabitants began to say, quote, "My dear Lord, if you remain in foreign countries for so long, we shall certainly be bereft of seeing your smiling face, and observing your face, we, your eternal servants, become greatly satisfied. All the anxieties of our existence are immediately mitigated. If we cannot see you because you are long absent from Dwarka, then it will be impossible for us to live any more." This is an instance of satisfaction in meeting Krishna after long separation. Krishna's personal servant Dwaraka, seeing Krishna at the door of Dwarka, forgot to offer him respects with folded hands. When a devotee is ultimately situated in association with Krishna, his position is called steadiness in devotional service. This steady position in devotional service is explained in the book known as Hamsaduta. It's described there how Akrura, who was considered by the gopis to be terror personified, would talk with Krishna about the activities of the Kuru dynasty. A similar steady position was held by Uddhava, the disciple of Brihaspati. He would always massage the lotus feet of Krishna while kneeling down on the ground before him. When a devotee is engaged in the service of the Lord, it's called the attainment of yoga. The English equivalent to the word yoga is linking up. So, actual linking with Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, begins when the devotee renders service unto him. Devotees situated in the transcendental rasa of servitorship render their particular service whenever there is an opportunity. Sometimes they sit down in front of Krishna to receive orders. Some persons are reluctant to accept this level of devotional service as actual bhakti yoga, and in some of the Puranas also, servitorship in devotional service to Krishna is not accepted as the actual bhakti yoga system. But in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's been clearly indicated that the servitor relationship with Krishna is the actual beginning of yoga realization. In the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd chapter, 33rd verse, it is stated that when devotees are engaged in the discharge of Bhaktiyoga, sometimes they cry from thinking of Krishna, sometimes they laugh, sometimes they become jubilant, and sometimes they talk in very uncommon ways. Sometimes they dance, sometimes they sing, sometimes they are actually engaged in the service of the Lord, and sometimes they sit down quietly as if absorbed in trance. Similarly, in the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 28, Prahlad Maharaj says to his friends, quote, "My dear friends, as soon as pure devotees of Lord Krishna hear of the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, who is the eternal reservoir of pastimes, or hear about his transcendental qualities, they become overpowered with jubilation. Ecstatic symptoms are manifested in their bodies. They shed tears, talk falteringly, glorify the Lord in a loud voice, and chant and dance in ecstasy. These ecstasies are always there, but sometimes they overcome all limits, and the symptoms become manifest to all." End quote. In the process of surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there are 6 items. To accept everything which is favorable for devotional service, to reject everything which is unfavorable for devotional service, to believe that Krishna will always give protection, to identify oneself with Krishna's devotees, to always feel inability without the help of Krishna, and to always think oneself inferior to Krishna, even though one may have full capacity to perform something on his own. When one is substantially convinced that he is always protected by Krishna in all circumstances, that feeling is called reverential devotion. Reverential devotion is executed in relation with the Supreme Personality of Godhead and with his other protected devotees. When Krishna was residing in Dwarka, some of the elderly members of the Yadu family would occasionally put some important matter before him. At such a time, Krishna would carefully give attention to those matters, and if there were some humorous topics mentioned, Krishna would immediately respond with a smiling face. Sometimes, when Krishna was executing his duties in the assembly known as Sudharma, he would ask the elderly members for good advice. By such activities, he is manifest as the Supreme Spiritual Master, Supreme Executive Head, the Superior Intelligence, the Supreme Power, Protector, and Maintainer. Chapter 40. Reverential Devotion of Sons and Other Subordinates. True reverential devotion is exhibited by persons who think themselves subordinate to Krishna, and by persons who think themselves sons of Krishna. The best examples of this subordination are Sarana, Gada, and Subhadra. They were all members of the Yadu dynasty, and used to always think themselves protected by Krishna. Similarly, Krishna's sons, such as Pradyumna, Charadesna, and Samba, felt the same way. Krishna had many sons in Dwarka. He begot 10 sons by each of his 16,108 queens, and all of these sons, headed by Pradyumna, Charadesna, and Samba, used to think themselves always protected by Krishna. When Krishna's sons dined with him, they would sometimes open their mouths for Krishna to feed them. Sometimes, when Krishna would pat one of his sons, the son would sit on Krishna's lap, and while Krishna was blessing the son's head by smelling it, the others would shed tears, thinking how many pious activities he must have performed in his previous life. Out of Krishna's many sons, Pradyumna, the son of Krishna's chief queen Rukmini, is considered the leader. Pradyumna's bodily features resembled Krishna's exactly. Pure devotees of Krishna glorify Pradyumna because he's so fortunate, like father, like son. There's a description in the Harivamsa of Pradyumna's activities when he kidnapped Prabhavati. Pradyumna addressed Prabhavati at that time and said, "My dear Prabhavati, just look at the head of our family, Sri Krishna. He is Vishnu himself, the supreme driver of Garuda, and he is our supreme master. Because we have become so proud and confident of his protecting us, we sometimes do not even care about fighting with Tripurari, Lord Shiva." There are two kinds of devotees engaged in devotional service with awe and veneration, and servitors in the abode of Dwarka always worship Krishna as the most respectable and revered personality of Godhead. They are captivated by Krishna because of his super-excellent opulences. The members who always thought themselves protected by Krishna could readily convert their conviction into practical demonstration, because it was sometimes found that the sons of Krishna acted very unlawfully in various places. Nonetheless, they were given full protection by Krishna and Balaram. Even Balaram, the elder brother of Krishna, sometimes unknowingly offered respect to him. Once, when Krishna came before Lord Balaram, he was anxious to offer his respects to his elder brother, but at that time Balaram's club was lowered down upon Krishna's lotus feet. In other words, the club in Balaram's hand offered its own respects to Krishna. These feelings of subordination, as explained above, are sometimes manifested as anubhava. When demigods from the heavenly planets came to Sri Krishna, all of Krishna's sons followed them, and Lord Brahma sprinkled water from his kamandalu upon them. When the demigods came before Krishna, instead of sitting on golden chairs, the sons sat down on the floor, which was covered with deerskin. Sometimes the behavior of Krishna's sons appears similar to the behavior of his personal servants. For example, the sons used to offer their obeisances. They were silent, submissive, and gentle, and they were always ready to carry out Krishna's orders, even at the risk of life. When present before Krishna, they bowed down on the ground. They were very silent and steady, and they used to restrain coughing and laughing before the Lord. Also, they never discussed Krishna's pastimes in conjugal love. In other words, devotees who are engaged in reverential devotional service should not discuss the conjugal love affairs of Krishna. No one should claim his eternal relationship with Krishna unless he is liberated. In the conditioned state of life, the devotees have to execute prescribed duties as recommended in the codes of devotional service. When one is mature in devotional service and is a realized soul, he can know his own eternal relationship with Krishna. One should not artificially try to establish some relationship. In the premature stage, it's sometimes found that a lusty, conditioned person will artificially try to establish some relationship with Krishna in conjugal love. The result of this is that one becomes prakrita sahajiya, or one who takes everything very cheaply. Although such persons may be very anxious to establish a relationship with Krishna in conjugal love, their conditioned life in the material world is still most abominable. A person who has actually established his relationship with Krishna can no longer act on the material plane, and his personal character cannot be criticized. When Cupid came on one occasion to visit Lord Krishna, some devotee addressed him thus, quote, "My dear Cupid, because you've been so fortunate as to have placed your eyesight on the lotus feet of Krishna, the drops of perspiration on your body have become frozen, and they resemble kantaki fruits, a kind of small fruit found in thorny bushes." End quote. These are signs of ecstasy and veneration unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When the princes of the Yadu dynasty heard the vibration of Krishna's Panchajanya conch shell, the hairs on their bodies immediately stood up in ecstatic jubilation. It seemed at that time that all the hairs on the bodies of the princes were dancing in ecstasy. In addition to jubilation, there are sometimes symptoms of disappointment. Pradyumna once addressed Samba with these words, My dear Samba, you are such a glorified personality. I have seen that once while you were playing on the ground, your body became covered with dust. Yet our Father, Lord Krishna, still took you up on his lap. But I'm so unfortunate, I could never get such love from our Father." End quote. This statement is an example of disappointment in love. To regard Krishna as one's superior is called reverential feeling, and when, in addition to this, a devotee feels that Krishna is his protector, his transcendental love for Krishna is increased, and his combined feelings are called reverential devotion. When this steady reverential devotion increases further, it's called love of Godhead in reverential devotion. Attraction and affection are two prominent symptoms of this stage. In this reverential devotional attitude, Pradyumna never talked to his father in a loud voice. In fact, he never so much as unlocked the lips of his mouth, nor did he ever show his face filled with tears. He would always glance only at the lotus feet of his father. There's another example of steady and fixed love for Krishna in the instance of Arjuna informing him of the death of Arjuna's son, Abhimanyu, who was also the nephew of Krishna. Abhimanyu was the son of Subhadra, Krishna's younger sister. He was killed at the Battle of Kurukshetra by the combined efforts of all the commanders in King Duryodhana's army, namely Karna, Asvatthama, Jayadratha, Bhishma, Kripacharya, and Dronacharya. In order to assure Krishna that there was no change of love on Subhadra's part, Arjuna informed him, quote, "Although Abhimanyu was killed, almost in your presence, Subhadra's love for you is not agitated at all, nor has it even slightly changed its original color." End quote. The affection that Krishna has for his devotees was expressed by himself when he asked Pradyumna not to feel so bashful before him. He addressed Pradyumna thus, quote, "My dear boy, just give up your inferiority complex. Do not hang your neck. Just talk with me in a clear voice, and do not shed tears. You can look straight at me, and you can place your hands on my body without any hesitation. There's no need of exhibiting so much reverence before your father." End quote. Pradyumna's attachment for Krishna was always exhibited by his action. Whenever he was ordered by his father to execute something, he would immediately execute the order, taking the task as nectarine, even though it may have been poisonous. Similarly, whenever he would find something to be disapproved of by his father, he would immediately reject it as poison, even though it may have been nectarine. Pradyumna's attachment and anxiety for Krishna was expressed when he said to his wife Rati, quote, "The enemy, Sambara, is already killed. Now I'm very anxious to see my father, who is my spiritual master, and who always carries the conch shell known as Panchajanya." End quote. Pradyumna felt great separation from Krishna when he was absent from Dwarka at the battlefield of Kurukshetra. He said, quote, "Since my father has left Dwarka, I do not take much pleasure in practicing fighting, nor am I interested in any kind of sporting pastimes, and what need is there to speak of these things? I do not even wish to stay at Dwarka in the absence of my father." End quote. When Pradyumna came back home after killing the Sambara, and as soon as he saw his father Krishna before him, he became so overjoyed that he himself could not understand his joy on that occasion. This is an instance of success in separation. A similar satisfaction was observed when Krishna returned from the battlefield of Kurukshetra to his home at Dwarka. All of his sons were so overjoyed that out of ecstasy they repeatedly made many mistakes. These mistakes were sign of complete satisfaction. Every day Pradyumna looked over Krishna's lotus feet with tears in his eyes. These signs of reverential devotion on the part of Pradyumna can be described in the same way they have been described in the case of other devotees. Chapter 41. This is entitled Fraternal Love. When a devotee is permanently situated in devotional service, and by different symptoms of ecstasy he has developed and matured a fraternal mellow or flavor in relationship with the Lord, and by different symptoms of ecstasy he has developed and matured a fraternal mellow or flavor in relationship with the personality of Godhead, at that time his feeling is called fraternal love of Godhead. The impetus for such fraternal love of God is God Himself. When one is liberated and discovers his eternal relationship with the Supreme Lord, the Lord Himself becomes the impetus for increasing fraternal love. The eternal associates of the Lord in Vrindavan have described this as follows, quote, "The Lord, Hari, whose bodily hue is like the Indranila jewel, whose smiling is as beautiful as the kunda flower, whose silk dress is as yellow as golden autumn foliage, whose chest is beautified with garlands of flowers, and who is always playing upon his flute. This enemy of the Aga demon is always attracting our hearts by wandering about Vrindavan." End quote. There are similar statements of fraternal love expressed outside the jurisdiction of Vrindavan. When the sons of Pandu, headed by Maharaj Yudhisthira, saw Krishna in his four-handed form on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, holding his conch shell, disc, club, and lotus flower, they completely forgot themselves, became merged in the ocean of nectarine happiness. It shows how the sons of Pandu, King Yudhisthira, Bhima, Arjuna, Nakula, and Sahadeva, were all caught up in fraternal love for Krishna. Sometimes the different names, forms, paraphernalia, and transcendental qualities provoke fraternal love. For instance, Krishna's nice dress, the all-auspicious symptoms on his body, his strongly built body, his knowledge of different languages, his learned teachings in the Bhagavad Gita, his uncommon genius in all fields of endeavor, his exhibition of expert knowledge, his mercy, his chivalry, his behavior as a conjugal lover, his intelligence, his forgiveness, his attraction for all kinds of men, his opulence, and his happiness, all provoke fraternal love. The impetus to fraternal love upon seeing the associates of Krishna in Vrindavan is also very natural, for their personal bodily features, their qualities and dress are all equal to Krishna's. These associates are always happy in their service to Krishna, and they are generally known as Vayasyas, or friends of the same age. These Vayasyas are fully confident of protection by Krishna. Devotees sometimes pray, quote, "Let us offer our respectful obeisances unto the Vayasyas of Krishna, who are firmly convinced of Krishna's friendship and protection, and whose devotion to Krishna is ever fixed. They're fearless, and on a level equal with Krishna, they discharge their transcendental loving devotional service." End quote. Such eternal Vayasyas are also found beyond the jurisdiction of Vrindavan, in places such as Dwarka and Hastinapur. Except for Vrindavan, all the places of Krishna's pastimes are called Puras, towns. Mathura and Hastinapura, the capital of the Kurus, are both Puras. Personalities like Arjuna, Bhima, Draupadi, and Sridham Brahman are counted among Krishna's fraternal devotees in the Puras. How the sons of Pandu, the Pandavas, enjoy Krishna's association is described as follows, quote, "When Krishna arrived in Indraprastha, the capital of the Kurus, Maharaj Yudhisthira immediately came out to smell the flavor of Krishna's head." End quote. It is the Vedic custom that superiors smell the heads of their subordinates when the subordinates offer respect to the superior by touching his feet. Similarly, Arjuna and Bhima embraced Krishna with great affection, and the two younger brothers, namely Nakula and Sahadeva, touched the lotus feet of Krishna with tears in their eyes and offered their respects. In this way, all the 5 Pandava brothers enjoyed the fraternal friendship of Krishna in transcendental mellow. Of the 5 Pandavas, Arjuna is the most intimately connected with Krishna. He has a nice bow in his hand, which is called Gandiva. His thighs are compared with the trunks of elephants, and his eyes are always reddish. When Krishna and Arjuna are together on a chariot, they become celestial beauties, pleasing to the eyes of everyone. It is said that once Arjuna was lying in his bed with his head upon Krishna's lap, and was talking and joking with Krishna in great relaxation, and was enjoying Krishna's company with smiling and great satisfaction. As far as the Vaisyas, friends in Vrindavan, are concerned, they become greatly distressed when they cannot see Krishna even for a moment. There is the following prayer by a devotee for the Vaisyas in Vrindavan, quote, "All glories to Krishna's Vaisyas, who are just like Krishna in their age, qualities, pastimes, dress, and beauty. They are accustomed to playing on their flutes made of palm leaves, and they all have buffalo horn bugles, ornamented like Krishna's, with jewels such as Indranila, and with gold and coral. They're always jubilant like Krishna. May these glorious companions of Krishna always protect us." End quote. The Vaisyas in Vrindavan are in such intimate friendship with Krishna that sometimes they think themselves as good as Krishna. Here is an instance of such friendly feeling. When Krishna was holding up Govardhan Hill with his left hand, the Vaisyas said, quote, "My dear friend, you have been standing for the last 7 days and nights without any rest. This is very troublesome for us, because we see that you have undertaken a severely laborious task. We think, therefore, that you need not continue to stand in that way holding the hill. You can just transfer it on to Sudama's hand. We're very much aggrieved to see you in this position. If you think that Sudama is not able to support Govardhan Hill, then at least you should change hands. Instead of supporting it with your left hand, please transfer it to your right hand so that we can give your left hand a massage." End quote. This is an instance of intimacy, showing how much the Vaisyas considered themselves to be equal to Krishna. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th Canto, 12th chapter, 10th verse, Sukadeva Goswami tells King Parikshit, quote, "My dear King, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead to the learned Transcendentalist. He's the supreme happiness for the impersonalist. He's the supreme worshipful deity for the devotee, and he is just an ordinary boy to one who is under the spell of Maya. And just imagine, these coward boys are now playing with the Supreme Person as though they're on an equal level. By this, anyone can understand that these boys must have accumulated heaps of the results of pious activities to enable them to associate with the Supreme Personality of Godhead in such intimate friendship." End quote. There is a description of Krishna's feeling for his Vaisyas in Vrindavan. He once said to Balaram, quote, "My dear brother, when my companions were being devoured by the Aghasura, hot tears poured down from my eyes, and as they were washing my cheeks, my dear elder brother, for at least one moment, I completely lost myself." End quote. Within Gokula, Krishna's Vaisyas are generally divided into 4 groups. 1. Well-wishers. 2. Friends. 3. Confidential friends. And 4. Intimate friends. Krishna's well-wisher friends are a little bit older than Krishna, and they have some parental affection for him. Because of their being older than Krishna, they always try to protect him from any harm. As such, they sometimes bear weapons, so they can chastise any mischievous person who wants to do harm to Krishna. Counted amongst the well-wisher friends are Subhadra. There's a footnote next to Subhadra. The footnote reads, not to be confused with Krishna's sister of the same name. Mandala Bhadra, Bhadravardhana, Gobhata, Yaksha, Indrabhata, Bhadranga, Virabhadra, Mahaguna, Vijaya, and Balabhadra. They are older than Krishna and are always thinking of his welfare. One of the elderly friends said, quote, "My dear Mandala Bhadra, why are you wielding a shining sword as though you were running towards Aristashur to kill him? My dear Baladev, why are you unnecessarily bearing that heavy plow? My dear Vijaya, don't be unnecessarily agitated. My dear Bhadravardhana, there's no need to make these threatening motions. If you will all look more closely, you will see that it is only a thundercloud upon Govardhan Hill. It is not the Aristashura in the shape of a bull, as you have imagined." End quote. These older, well-wishing friends of Krishna imagined a large cloud to be the Aristashura, appearing in the shape of a huge bull. In the midst of their excitement, one of them ascertained that it was actually only a cloud on Govardhan Hill. He therefore informed the others not to take the trouble of worrying about Krishna, because there was no present danger from Aristashura. Among the well-wisher friends, Mandala Bhadra and Balabhadra are the chiefs. Mandala Bhadra is described as follows. His complexion is yellowish, and his dress is very attractive. He always carries a stick of various colors. He wears a peacock feather on his head, and always looks very beautiful. Mandala Bhadra's attitude is revealed in his statement, quote, "My dear friends, our beloved Krishna is now very tired from working with the cows in the pasturing grounds and from traveling all over the forest. I can see he's very fatigued. Let me massage his head silently while he's taking rest in his house, and you, Subala, you just massage his thighs." End quote. One devotee described the personal beauty of Baladev as follows, quote, "Let me take shelter of the lotus feet of Balaram, whose beauty is enhanced by the earrings touching his cheeks. His face is decorated with tilak made from kasturi, which is musk, and his broad chest is decorated with a garland of gunja, small conch shells. His complexion is as white as an autumn cloud. He wears garments of blue color. His voice is very grave. His arms are very long, touching his thighs, and he has shown his great strength by killing Pralambashura demon. Let me take shelter of this chivalrous Balaram." And there's a footnote next to Balaram, and it reads, "Balaram and Baladev are different names for the same expansion of Krishna. He is Krishna's elder brother." Baladev's affection for Krishna is illustrated in this statement to Subala, quote, "My dear friend, please inform Krishna not to go to Kalia's lake today. Today is his birthday, so I wish to go along with Mother Yasoda to bathe him. Tell him he should not leave the house today." End quote. This shows how Balaram, Krishna's elder brother, took care of Krishna with parental love within the scope of fraternal affection. Friends who were younger than Krishna, who were always attached to him and gave him all kinds of service, are called ordinary friends or simple friends. Such ordinary friends are called shakas, and the names of some shakas are Vishala, Rishabha, Ojasvi, Devaprastha, Varutapa, Maranda, Kushumapida, Manibandha, and Karandam. All of these Shaka friends of Krishna sought only to serve him. Sometimes some of them would rise early in the morning and immediately go to Krishna's place and wait at the door to see Krishna and to accompany him to the pasturing grounds. In the meantime, Krishna would be dressed by Mother Yasoda. When she would see a boy standing at the door, she would call him, quote, "Well, Vishala, why are you standing there? Come here." End quote. So with the permission of Mother Yasoda, he would immediately enter the house, and while Mother Yasoda was dressing Krishna, he would try to help put on Krishna's ankle bells, and Krishna would jokingly strike him with his flute. Then Mother Yasoda would call, quote, "Krishna, what is this? Why are you teasing your friend?" End quote. And Krishna would laugh, and the friend would also laugh. These are some of the activities of Krishna's sakhas. Sometimes the sakhas would take care of the cows who were going hither and thither and they would tell Krishna, quote, "Your cows are going off here and there," end quote, and Krishna would thank them. Sometimes when Krishna and his sakhas went to the pasturing ground, Kamsa would send a demon to kill Krishna. Therefore, almost every day there was a fight with some different kind of demon. After fighting with a demon, Krishna would feel fatigued, the hairs on his head would be scattered, and the sakhas would immediately come and try to relieve him in different ways. Some friends would say, quote, "My dear Vishala, please take this fan of lotus leaves and fan Krishna so that he may feel some comfort. Varutapa, you just brush the scattered hairs on Krishna's head which have fallen upon his face. Vrishabha, don't talk unnecessarily. Immediately massage Krishna's body. His arms have become tired from fighting and wrestling with that demon. Oh, just see how our friend Krishna has become tired." End quote. These are some of the examples of the treatment given to Krishna by the sakhas. One of the sakhas, known as Devaprastha, is described as follows. He's very strong, a ready scholar, and is very expert in playing ball. He wears a white dress, and he ties his hair into a bunch with a rope. Whenever there is a fight between Krishna and the demons, Devaprastha is the first to help, and he fights just like an elephant. One of the gopis once said to her friend, quote, "My dear beautiful friend, when Krishna, the son of Maharaj Nanda, was taking rest within the cave of a hill, he was keeping his head on the arms of Sridham, and he was putting his left hand on Dhamma's chest. Taking this opportunity, Devaprastha, out of strong affection for Krishna, immediately began to massage his legs." End quote. Such are the activities of Krishna's friends out on the pasturing grounds. The more confidential friends are called Priyashakas and are almost Krishna's age. Because of their very confidential friendship, their behavior is only on the basis of pure friendship. Other friends' behavior is on the ground of paternal love or servitude, but the basic principle of the confidential friends is simply friendship on an equal level. Some confidential friends are as follows: Sridham, Sudham, Dhamma, Vasudham, Kinkini, Stoka Krishna, Amsu, Bhadrasena, Vilasina, Pundarika, Vitanka, Kalavinka. By their various activities and different pastimes, all of these friends used to give transcendental pleasure to Krishna. The behavior of these confidential friends is described by a friend of Radharani who told Radharani, quote, "My dear graceful Radharani, your intimate friend Krishna is also served by his intimate boyfriends. Some of them cut jokes with him in mild voices and please him very much by this." End quote. For example, Krishna had one Brahmin friend whose name was Madhumangala. The boy would joke by playing the part of a greedy Brahmin. Whenever the friends ate, he would eat more than all the others, especially ladus, of which he was very fond. Then, after eating more ladus than anyone else, Madhumangala would still not be satisfied, and he would say to Krishna, quote, "If you give me one more ladu, then I'll be pleased to give you my blessings, so that your friend Radharani will be very much pleased with you." End quote. The Brahmins are supposed to give blessings to the Vaishyas, farming and mercantile class. And Krishna presented himself as the son of Maharaj Nanda, a Vaishya. So the Brahmin boy was right in giving blessings to Krishna. As Krishna was very pleased by his friend's blessings, and he would supply him with more and more ladus. Sometimes a confidential friend would come before Krishna and embrace him with great affection and love. Another friend would then come up from the rear and cover Krishna's eyes with his hands. Krishna would always feel very happy by such dealings with his confidential friends. Out of all these confidential friends, Sridham is considered to be the chief. Sridham used to put on a yellow-colored dress. He would carry a buffalo horn, and his turban was reddish copper color. His bodily complexion was blackish, and around his neck there was a nice garland. He would always challenge Krishna in joking friendship, and let us pray to Sridham to bestow his mercy upon us. Sometimes Sridham used to address Krishna, quote, "Oh, you are so cruel that you left us alone on the bank of the Yamuna, and we were all mad from not seeing you there. Now it's our great fortune that we are able to see you here. If you want to pacify us, you must embrace each one of us with your arms. But believe me, my dear friend, a moment's absence from you creates great havoc, not only for us, but for the cows also. Everything becomes disarranged. We become mad after you." End quote. There are other friends who are still more confidential. They're called Priyanarma, or intimate friends. Counted among Priyanarma friends are Subala, Arjuna, Gandharva, Vashanta, and Ujjvala. There was talk among the friends of Radharani, the gopis, about these most intimate friends. One gopi addressed Radharani thusly, quote, "My dear Krishangi, delicate one, just see how Subal is whispering your message into Krishna's ear, how he is delivering the confidential letter of Shamadasi silent into Krishna's hand, and how he is delivering the betel nuts prepared by Palika into Krishna's mouth, and how he is decorating Krishna with the garland prepared by Taraka. Did you know, my dear friend, that all these most intimate friends of Krishna are always engaged in his service in this way?" End quote. Out of many intimate Priyanarmas, Subala and Ujjvala are considered to be the most prominent. Subala's body is described as follows. His complexion is just like molten gold. He is very, very dear to Krishna. He always has a garland around his neck, and he wears yellow clothing. His eyes are just like lotus flower petals, and he's so intelligent that by his talking and his moral instructions, all the other friends take the highest pleasure. Let us all offer our respectful obeisances unto Krishna's friend, Subala. The degree of intimacy shared by Krishna and Subala can be understood by the fact that the talks between them were so confidential that no one else could understand what they were saying. The description of Ujjvala, another intimate friend, is given as follows. Ujjvala always wears some garment of orange color, and the movements of his eyes are always very restless. He likes to decorate himself with all kinds of flowers. His bodily hue is almost like Krishna's, and on his neck there is always a necklace of pearls. He is always very dear to Krishna. Let us all worship Ujjvala, the most intimate friend of Krishna. About the confidential service of Ujjvala, this statement is to be found, addressed by Radharani to one of her friends. Quote, "My dear friend, it is impossible for me to keep my prestige. I wanted to avoid talking to Krishna any more, but just see, there again is his friend Ujjvala coming to me with his canvassing work. His entreaties are so powerful, it's very difficult for a gopi to resist her love for Krishna, even though she may be very bashful, devoted to her family duties, and most faithful to her husband." End quote. Following is a statement by Ujjvala, showing his jubilant nature. Quote, "My dear Krishna, O King of Agashura, O Killer of Agashura, you have extended your loving affairs so much that you can be compared to the great ocean, which is without limitations. At the same time, the young girls of the world, who are all searching after the perfect lover, have become just like rivers running into this ocean. Under the circumstance, all these rivers of young girls may try to divert their courses to some other place, but at the end they must come unto you." End quote. Amongst the groups of different friends of Krishna, some are well known from various scriptures, and some are well known by popular tradition. There are three divisions amongst Krishna's friends. Some are eternally in friendship with Krishna, some are elevated demigods, and some are perfected devotees. In all of these groups, there are some who by nature are fixed in Krishna's service and are always engaged in giving counsel. Some of them are very fond of joking and naturally cause Krishna to smile by their words. Some of them are by nature very simple, and by their simplicity they please Lord Krishna. Some of them create wonderful situations by their activities, apparently against Krishna. Some of them are very talkative, always arguing with Krishna and creating a debating atmosphere. And some of them are very gentle and give pleasure to Krishna by their sweet words. All of these friends are very intimate with Krishna, and they show expertise in their different activities, their aim always being to please Krishna.